High school football coverage is on every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Watch live on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Sports on Tap's high school football coverage is presented by Raymond Felton State Farm.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
Hand-and-built leather goods. Leather goods built for life. Made by hand in the USA, all goods are made with veg-tanned leather. Some of the best quality around and made by a U.S. veteran. Check out their website, www.handbuiltleather.com. We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com. And one.
And welcome, everybody, to Sports on Tap. This is the last edition of our Summer Spotlight. This is the high school football preview of the 2024 high school football season. My name is Ed Dick, alongside Rob Troutman, Sean Duffy, Noah Jacobson, and Josh Jeffy. The whole crew is here. We're back together again, and it is one of the most exciting weeks of the year. The high school football season kicks off officially this Thursday night, August 22nd. Most of us will be out on August 23rd. And, of course, we'll always have games on Saturdays as well. Thanks for tuning in and listening to us. And listening to you got to listen to about a word about all of our sponsors. We'll break about halfway through this show to get another word from our sponsors. And, of course, you'll hear them again at the end of the show. You're watching this live on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe at Sports on Tap. We're also on Spotify as well. Make sure you look for Sports on Tap on Spotify. We are on Twitter/X at SOT Podcasts. We are on Threads at SOT_podcasts. Our Facebook page is Sports on Tap. Make sure you like and follow us there. And, of course, our website is sportsontap.podcast.com. You're going to get all the information you need about schedules, standings, where we're going to be, what we're doing on our show, and any questions, comments, pronunciations, statistics, most importantly now going forward, make sure you send this to us at sportsontap@gmail.com. Gentlemen, this is again a very exciting time of the year. We are to set the stage for what we're doing tonight. We're going to go through a conference preview for each of our 5 divisions or conferences, if you will. We will be starting with the Southwestern Conference from Rob Troutman. Then Noah Jacobson's going to cover the Greater Cleveland Conference. Josh Jeffy with the Suburban League National Conference. We'll take a break there, hear a word from our sponsors. We'll come back with Professor Hype himself, Sean Duffy, with the Suburban League American Conference, and then I'll wrap it up with the newly formed Cleveland West Conference. Guys, it's finally here. We've had a few shifts in the landscape since we last met. Officially talking about football, we've talked to a lot of coaches over the course of the last few weeks. Noah Jacobson has done a tremendous job going out to camps and scrimmages and getting in-depth interviews with coaches and players. But this is it. Now we're at it here. Just to take a quick step backwards from where we ended up last year. And Sean Duffy is going to be running a very fantastic PowerPoint here shortly. But I wanted to just remind everybody where we were at the end of last year. So that's what the conferences look like. It might be a little bit rough to see because it is small, but the Southwestern Conference, Rob, no surprise, Avon wins the Southwestern Conference, a perfect 10-0 record. But a lot of logjam there between Olmsted Falls, North Ridgeville, and Avon Lake. For the Greater Cleveland Conference, Cleveland Heights joins the conference, wins the conference. So we'll talk a little bit about that with Noah Jacobson. From the Suburban League National Division, Wadsworth, their 2 losses were non-conference. They were undefeated in Suburban League National Conference play. Josh will talk about that. In the Suburban League American Division, Aurora and Highland battled it out at the end of the year last year. Aurora gets the Duke and the Suburban League American Conference Championship, and which Sean will talk about. And then in the Great Lakes Conference, this is the last year that they had 2 different divisions. 3-way tie between Buckeye, Valley Forge, and Holy Name. On the east side, on the west side, there was no doubt. Although the games were very close, Rocky River wins that division. As far as what the conference looks like this year, you may notice some changes here. Solon goes from the Greater Cleveland Conference, goes from Noah to Josh. Solon joins the Suburban League National Conference. So Josh picks up an extra team, a full 8-team slate now, the Suburban League National Conference. Now, due to scheduling this year, there will still be a non-conference game in the middle of the season for Solon and North Royalton, for that matter. They're not going to play each other this year, but that should rectify itself pretty quick here. The Cleveland West Conference, the 8 remaining public school teams from the Great Lakes Conference, not including Fairview, which was predetermined they were moving to the CVC. They formed the Cleveland West Conference. Holy Name and Elyria Catholic joined the new North Coast Conference, made up of Catholic schools around the area. The American Conference of the Suburban League remains untouched. The Southwestern Conference remains untouched. And for Noah, Solon leaves, but next year they're going to pick up Lorraine from the Lake Erie League. So there's going to be a lot more exciting stuff going on as we progress through the year, and obviously next year with some more conference changes. All right, that kind of sets the stage for where we were last year and what we're talking about this year. Without further ado, Rob Troutman, the Southwestern Conference. Can anyone beat Avon?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question. And you know what? I'm going to put up on the screen right now is a little bit of where Avon was last year. They went 14-1 last year. Overall, they were 10-0 in conference. They return a lot of players coming back this year. Ty Kaufman, we remember him at running back and linebacker, was a huge part. Jacob Weatherspoon, another defensive back, is coming back on defense. They have a lot coming back on defense. I think Coach Elder mentioned 7 or 8 guys. Nolan Good, he committed to Kent State in this offseason, said, you know, he's relieved that part of it's over so he can focus on the season and get back, and he's raring to go, especially after that injury last year. He's an important part of that team last year. Obviously, Coach Elder's son, he did a great job stepping in last year, but realistically, their only loss last year was to Archbishop Hoban, and they did have a close game though in the playoffs. As you can see, they won versus Olmsted Falls in the playoffs 33-23, but not a lot of close games. And if you look, Glenville was a close game at 27 or 24-16. Another one, Amherst, they were 3-7 last year, but a 63-28 loss for Amherst. But man, they gave a good fight in that game. So again, Avon 10-0, they lead under Coach Mike Elder, and they're coming in really strong as well. Then following them was Olmsted Falls, and you look at what they did last year. They were 9-4 with key losses though, a 10-3 loss versus Avon, or North Ridgeville rather. They lost twice to Avon, once in regular season and once in the playoffs, and Berea Mid-Park. Those were their losses. They're bringing back some players. How about Owen Singleton? He was our player of the week last year. He had some huge performances. He's coming back at running back, and he had over 1,000 yards last year. Jimmy Rossell is another quarterback coming back. You want to talk about some great stats. He had 823 yards rushing and 750 yards passing, and overall, double digits in touchdowns. He's putting up some big numbers last year. Nate Habernacki at linebacker and Brendan Hearns are leading that defense as the senior leaders. They're going to really take it by the horns, the bull by the horns rather, on defense, and they're going to hopefully be impressive on defense. I know Olmsted Falls last year, I thought they did a great job with Coach Pace, and they're a defense that really was impressive, especially in week one. We covered Solon. They won 35-0. You saw they won 2 playoff games this year. Let's see what they can do coming up this year. Now, North Ridgeville. How about North Ridgeville? We talked to Coach Morgan early on. They finished 8-4, and every year they continue to get better. They're bringing back some players. Every team here, it seems like, was young last year. Charlie Steinmetz coming back. Also, Ryan Anderson is a guy that's coming onto the scene at wide receiver who helps Charlie Steinmetz out. Look for him to have a big season. And on the defensive side, Carson Mattis and Austin DeShazo. DeShazo also kicked for North Ridgeville, and he had some game-winning kicks. He's going to play linebacker. And looking at North Ridgeville, they started 4-0 with big wins against Olmsted Falls, but big losses too versus obviously Avon. The Midview game was a big-time loss, 35-20, and that's a rivalry to keep your eye on this season. And Berea Mid-Park, and then they lost to Highland. You see it in the playoffs, a 28-7 loss. But they won their first playoff game, 35-14 over Valley Forge. Then in fourth last year was the Shoremen of Avon Lake. They finished 7-5 under Coach Kostelnik, and they are trying to get back in the thick of it here. As they're always in the thick of this Southwestern Conference race. They had some losses to Chardon, Olmsted Falls, North Ridgeville, and Avon, but they started 2-1, then went 6-1 before 3 losses. So they were 6-1 and then the 3 losses, but got that big win in the playoffs. They bounced back. We'll have to see what Avon Lake can do. I know Coach Kostelnik on both sides of the ball is excited to see how these players are going to come through. Couldn't find a lot on who's returning with the Shoremen, but we'll have to check on that and maybe put it on our website as we go through it. Berea Mid-Park, 7-5. They lost to Cleveland Heights twice last year. So 2 of their 5 losses were to Cleveland Heights, 1 to Avon Lake, and Nordonia. So, when you look at Berea Mid-Park, look at the teams they lost to. I mean, twice to an 11-2 Cleveland Heights team. And then you lose to a 14-1 Avon team, 7-5 Avon Lake team, and an 8-3 Nordonia team. So all teams that are very impressed, that had great seasons. And under Coach Hunick, the one big loss is the defensive coordinator, Matt Wilson, who goes and coaches Elyria. Let's see how they're going to recover. We had Coach Hunick go back and go on our YouTube page and watch that full interview of Coach Hunick talking about Coach Wilson going to Elyria and some of the players. They have quarterback Danny Bowser coming back. He's going to be a big one. An offensive line, Mason Zahersky is coming back. Mitchell Hauser, he's going to move to safety. And a lot of these players on both ends are really a strong up front for Berea Mid-Park. They were strong on offense. They can put up points. And even defensively, they went through a spurt where they only gave up 7 points through 5 games. So, that's one thing to keep an eye on when you look at Berea Mid-Park is how's that defense going to withstand throughout the season, because they had a very impressive defense. Now you lose Coach Wilson. Let's see. They started out 1-3 last season, finished 7-5. Were the Titans of Berea Mid-Park. Now number 6 are the Midview Middies. They're under Jack Armstrong. Michael Passarello, he's the running back and he plays defense, and he's a big part of that Midview Middies team, who went 4-7 last year under Coach Armstrong. They're looking to kind of keep improving as they started off 2-1 last year and then 3 straight losses there. They played a very tough Highland team in the playoffs where they lost. But a big win against North Ridgeville. That was their big win, and that's a rivalry that is really tough when you look at it. And their defense, they do have an experienced junior class on that defensive line. Cameron West and Dior Jones, the wide receiver, is coming back. And Dior Jones, he also returned punts and kickoffs. He's pretty dangerous. If he can stay on the field and stay healthy, look out for Dior Jones to have a big year. So let's see what Midview can do under head coach Jack Armstrong, who, again, a 4-7 record. Now Amherst, there's another team with Coach Thome there, as they were 3-7 last year, a little bit better than the previous year. They started off 3-1, and then they struggled the rest of the year, but very close games. Other than the Berea Mid-Park game, Berea Mid-Park came to play, but they lost a 32-27 game at Avon Lake. And, an Avon team, they put up 28 points. So they really put up some points this year. Cole Norris is their star, a quarterback that can play. He scores a lot of touchdowns with his feet and also can pass the ball. They're a team to look out for, and hopefully they can improve from their 3-7 mark last season. Again, Coach Thome looking to continue to get those numbers up at Amherst. They always had a really, really good program. They're going to look to improve this season. The Elyria Pioneers, and if you want to go see what the Pioneers are up to, check out Noah Jacobson's coverage. He interviewed Coach Wilson and some players there, especially Kevin Jordan, the running back, over 1,000 yards last season. And that's a kid to really look out for. On an Elyria team that only won 1 game last season, he still put up a lot of points, and they're returning some of that offensive line. The quarterback, Stephen Gilbert, he's back running the offense, so he's in his second season, but now with another head coach. He catches on quick, and I think this Elyria team, from their 1 win last season, I think they're a team that is looking to improve. Obviously, they played some tough teams. They played a tough Princeton team who went 12-1 last season, and they lost to Avon. I mean, the Southwestern Conference is a meat grinder there, and in the playoffs they faced St. Edward, and we know how good St. Edward is. So, a tough draw there. But, they're looking to improve, and I think the one thing you noticed with Elyria and a lot of the players is under Coach Wilson, he's very positive, and I think he's looking to get the most out of his players. And these guys are excited. They said they want to not only be better, but they want to do Elyria proud. So a big win last season was at Amherst, and that was 46-41. That was a big game for Kevin Jordan, who had, again, over 1,000 yards and scored most of the offense for Elyria. So let's see what he can do this season, and hopefully Elyria gets on the right track. But, guys, looking at the Southwestern Conference, obviously everything's going to run through Avon. I mean, that's just how it is with Avon. They get big numbers, and they have a lot of depth. And I think that's what you hear Coach Morgan and some of these other teams, they're trying to do it the same way with add depth to your program. And that way, like North Ridgeville, they went through a lot of injuries last year, and they couldn't withstand them. They hung tough in some of the games, but couldn't withstand all the injuries. Let's see how some of these teams do. Avon, they have a very tough way to go to start off. I mean, they're obviously last year they went Brunswick, Kent, McKinley, and Glenville. This year, starting off with St. Ignatius. I mean, so that's going to be a great game that Noah's going to be covering at Cleveland Brown Stadium. That will be fun to watch. But Southwestern Conference, let's see what happens. A lot of close, a lot of teams starting to try to catch up to Avon, and we'll see what happens this year.
Hey, Rob, with that, I mean, Berea Mid Park, the record, they were 7-5 last year, but they only lost 2 games in the conference.
Yeah.
And in North Ridgeville and Olmsted Falls and Avon Lake, Ridgeville and Berea Mid Park last year pushed their way into that upper echelon of the Southwestern Conference. If taking Avon out of the equation here, who would be the next best team out of that grouping, and that does include Midview and Amherst and Elyria, who are not going to be easy outs. Who besides Avon, who thinks going to make some noise over the course of the season?
I think a team to watch is North Ridgeville. I just think that every year they continue to win and get better. Berea Mid, it's really tough because a lot of these teams, Olmsted Falls, I feel like is right in back of Avon, and they've been for a while. But I feel like Berea Mid Park and North Ridgeville are right there. And I mean, looking at last year, North Ridgeville was 7-3, the same record in conference as Olmsted Falls. I mean, it was that close. And Berea Mid Park, I think they continue to get better. Coach Hunick does a great job. No matter who's in there, it seems like his personnel offensively continues to put up those numbers. Defensively, they were strong. We were at the game at Avon Lake, and they struggled a little bit to get the offense going. But Avon Lake is a team too that hangs around. They had a 6-4 record, and quietly it seems like nobody really talks about them because you're used to them being consistently good. Same with Avon and Olmsted Falls. But, you like to see these teams, especially like the North Ridgeville and Berea Mid Park, try to catch up a little bit. And I think that's what we're going to see, with Midview and Amherst. I'm interested to see what kind of jump they're going to make, if they make a jump this year. I think Midview has some returning players. Amherst, I'm intrigued to see because I think they lost some talent last year, but they're trying to make that jump, and each team is trying to get better and better. They started with new head coaches and they're learning new systems, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but we'll see what happens. I think North Ridgeville, though, the North Ridgeville and Berea Mid Park are 2 teams that are closing the gap a little bit on Olmsted Falls, who always seems to end in second place. So let's see what happens this year. It's kind of up for grabs if you ask me. But like Midview beating North Ridgeville, that might be a surprise to others. But that rivalry, you never know. I mean, throw the records out the door. It seems like it's always a close game.
Yeah, not to mention too, last year in the playoffs, there was an epic Avon versus Olmsted Falls game. And I came away, I was at that game, covered it for SOT. I came away believing that Olmsted Falls thought they should have won that game. They were in it. And I think that's the kind of playoff game against a team like Avon for a program like Olmsted Falls, who can never seem to get over the hump. Again, it was then a loss to that team, but they were competing for most of that game. They fought. Came down, came back. And that's a game that could definitely they could build on. And I think a lot of the returners for Olmsted Falls, that's a game that they remember. And I think that's a game that's going to kind of fuel their season coming in this year.
And
I gotta go with.
Please go ahead.
I was gonna say, I got looking at the Southwestern Conference top to bottom. Obviously Avon's there every year. That they are what they are, but to me, I kind of feel like a team that's not really getting talked about quite as much or being taken for granted for how good they are is Avon Lake. I mean, Avon Lake is there year in and year out. They've had some tough losses, last year, but I look at a team like Avon Lake and how scrappy that team is, week in, week out, and realistically, they're right there with Avon every year. It's those two teams, and then you throw in Olmsted Falls, and then you'll have a rising star or a rising team like a North Ridgeville or a Berea Mid Park. But realistically, Avon Lake are the top two teams in this conference. Pretty steadily, pretty consistently. So, if I'm picking a horse to dethrone Avon this year, I gotta back the Shoremen a little bit. I like what I'm seeing from the Shoremen. I think the Shoremen have a lot of returning players, a lot of experience, but they also got that dog in them a little bit, for lack of a better term. I think they're tired of hearing about how good the Avon program is. I think they're tired of hearing about Avon going to the semifinals every year. I think Avon Lake is going to probably, make some noise this year. I could be wrong, but I like what I'm seeing coming out of Avon Lake.
If I remember right, too, I'm going to check this just to make sure, but I think Avon and Avon Lake this year, they play the last game of the season. So that'll be a great game to finish the season. It's Avon, and they travel to Avon Lake, so it is in Shoreman country, we'll say. So that should be interesting.
Before we move on, I can throw up what the first week of the Southwestern Conference looks like, Rob.
Yeah.
On our handy dandy
PowerPoint.
If I can just figure it out. Give me a minute.
And in the end, at the end of this show, we'll talk about where everybody's going, too. So stick around to the end of the show to see where everybody's going. I want to thank Ray Felton, State Farm, for being a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap, and he'll be back this year. And maybe we'll get him out to a game at some point. I know he's in the Hudson area. So he's excited probably for the Suburban League coming up, along with the Greater Cleveland Conference. And Cleveland West.
We got that. Honestly, I can't tell if it's up or not, so I'm trusting you guys on it.
Hang on.
If we
it's
need
not
to,
up there.
If we need to, we can push it.
There
it
is.
up.
Now it's up. There it is.
All right, Rob, go through it real quick here.
All right, we have Amherst taking on Copley. The big game, Avon versus St. Ignatius, Strongsville and Avon Lake. That should be a great one. Brunswick and Berea Mid Park. Elyria and Mayfield, Westlake and Midview, North Ridgeville travels, or actually I think they're going to have that one versus North Olmsted, Olmsted Falls and Solon. So there's some great games. A lot of games that happened last year, they're on the second year of their contract. They'll play again this year, except Amherst I know was home last year, so they're going to be headed to Copley, and Avon Lake is headed to Strongsville. So that's going to be that'll be a fun one. And I'm interested to see Brunswick taking on Berea Mid Park. They have a new head coach there with Coach Carter. Let's see how he does in his first game there at Brunswick. A lot of new coaches, really. Westlake going to travel, to Midview to, and they're going to battle there. Elyria and Mayfield. Mayfield's always tough. So a lot of great games in the Southwestern Conference in the non-conference schedule here in Week 1.
And no doubt about that. So the Southwestern Conference, that is all you need to know for the Southwestern Conference. Rob will be updating us all year long on that conference. All right, let's shift over to the Greater Cleveland Conference. Dr. Hoops himself, Noah Jacobson, is gonna take it away here. Noah, Cleveland Heights comes into the league last year, wins the league. They bring back all-world running back and defensive back Marquise Davis. What does this year have in store for the Greater Cleveland Conference?
Well, this year in the GCC, I mean, like you said, Ed, there's probably no stopping the Cleveland Heights Tigers when you have a guy like Marquise Through-It-All Davis back. And what a stud he is at running back. He just recently committed to the University of Kentucky. And it always helps, not just having one, but two Division I recruits. And Brandon Caesar, who just recently committed to West Virginia, and then Jake Blunt Stubbs to the University of Minnesota. But last year, like you said, Ed, they won the conference in their first year in the GCC. They also went 11-2 and made the regional semifinals for the first time in program history, but came up short to Medina. But like you said, what a great run for Coach Max Caesars, who's already going into his 10th season, which is crazy. And when we move on to one team to another, the Brunswick Blue Devils. The last 2 years, they went to 3-8 first-round playoff exits. But this year is kind of a new era for Blue Devils football. They get a new head coach in Cole Carter, who for the last 2 years, his team as the head coach, Galileo Academy, went 9-3, won a couple first-round playoff games. But this year always helps with a guy like Cooper Neal, this wide receiver who had 1,066 all-purpose yards, and it always helps when you have two defensive players like Elijah Clement and Colin Kaviolek, who had 77 tackles last year. But I really expect to see Brunswick. I mean, there was a couple games last year where they could have been close, but they really competed well against Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights last year. So I'm really excited to see how they do. And then for the Euclid Panthers, they haven't been in the driving force for the last couple of years. But like you said, talking about Brunswick, they get a new head coach in Damian Creel, who came over from Lorraine, kind of built the program from the bottom to the top. And he's kind of looking to do the same thing right now with the Euclid Panthers. But it always helps when you get a guy who you don't see many high school football players transfer. Kylan Stubel, who was a BHSA quarterback for them last year, he comes over to the Vikings, to the Panthers, and then it helps when you have a guy who plays two ways of the ball, offense and defense. Keyshawn Telfair, and then Jimmy Clements, who's a wide receiver. Last year for the Panthers, they finished 1-10, 0-6 in the conference play. But I really expect the Panthers to really able to compete with Coach Crale's going to bring to this football team. And then the Medina Bees. For the last 5 years, guys, they've been really improved of how they've really done the program. Like Coach Laird, I was talking to him last week. He's we're a program right now because they've been to the regional finals 3 of the last 4 years. They've won the GCC 2 of the last 3 years. So they're kind of paving the way this year. But it always helps when you have a couple of defensive players like Cooper Josepic, who was the GCC Defensive Player of the Year with 139 tackles. And then it always helps when you have a guy who leads Northeast Ohio in all of interceptions, Talon Hobie with 12 of them. And then offensively, you get a guy like Tommy Pryke, who was basically the only starter from that team last year. So I really expect a lot to see a really talented defense for Medina this year. Like you said, Cooper Josepic and Talon Hobie, big additions to helping that defense out this year. Last year, they finished 10-4, 5-2 in conference play. They made the regional finals, but again, fell short against St. Edwards. Moving on, we got the Menor Cardinals. I mean, last year for them wasn't the way you wanted to go out. I mean, last year they lost in a heartbreaking first-round game against St. Ignatius in the first round of the playoffs. But it helps when you have a guy like Scotty Fox who committed to West Virginia. And it always helps when you have, I may be saying this kind of new, a dynamic duo like Austin Van Huss and Justin Hodge. Keep your eye out, folks. Those two players might be a dynamic duo to watch for the Menor Cardinals. But last year for them, they finished 7-4, 6-1 in conference play. The only loss was that double overtime game against Cleveland Heights, which was a really great game. But I really expect Menor to be able to, Menor's always been who they've been the last couple of years, able to compete with some of the big teams like Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, and Medina. But I do really expect Matt Gray's team to have a really great year this year. And then for Shaker Heights, this was a team last 2 years that were 3-7, and then last year they were 7-4. No one expected that. And it always helps when you have a guy like Trey McNutt who just committed to Oregon. What a crazy offseason he's had with these offers. Big talent going to be coming back. And it always helps when you have a guy like Cornell Beard at running back. What tremendous numbers that he had last year. And then last year they finished 7-4, 4-3 in conference play. Just came up short in that first round playoff matchup against Barberton, 48-45. What a great game that was. But I really expect to see Coach Alex Nicholson's team, like you said, last 2 years they went 3-7, but they really took another step forward. And I feel like the same way they could really possibly do that this year. And then lastly, the Strundville Mustangs. Like we were talking about earlier with Brunswick, they finished 3-8 the last 2 years. They lost in the first round. But it doesn't happen too often when you have a guy who was a 10-year NFL player like Jason Trustig being their head coach. That does not happen too often to having a guy who played in the NFL. And then it always helps when you have a guy like Nolan Beard back at quarterback. It wasn't the way that he wanted to come out with this ACL injury, but his backup, Harsh Portel, did a great job kind of competing against these GCC teams. And it always helps when you have a guy like Storm Miller, Blake Miller's brother, who was at Clemson, like a big body tight end to give him the ball. And then defensively, you got a guy like Jackson Griffin, who I really expect him to make some great plays this year. Last season, they went 3-8, 2-5 in conference play. But I really expect to see Strongsville really hoping taking that next step, kind of like Brunswick. And that's what I really expect to see from these GCC teams this season. It's going to be a great year of football. Hopefully, have some great competitions. And that's what I really expect to see from the Greater Cleveland Conference in 2024.
The Greater Cleveland Conference is an absolute. I don't want to say this. I want to say this word lightly, but they're a murderer's row of Division I powerhouses. With Menor, as you mentioned, coming off the mend here. Scotty Fox returns. He's been a starter forever. Back when Josh was covering the Greater Cleveland Conference, they breed 3-year quarterbacks, and Scotty Fox is no different there. Who do you think is going to stand out in the conference the most? I think you hyped up Cleveland Heights pretty well with great reason. How do you see the Greater Cleveland Conference shaking out on top?
Well, I really expect to see Menor kind of chasing Cleveland Heights maybe. That was a great game last year in that double overtime game. Came down to a 2-point conversion. But I really expect to see Shaker Heights kind of taking that big step. Like you said, 2 years ago, they were 3-7. Last year, they took a step forward. They went 7-4, almost won their first playoff game since 1999. But I really expect to see these three teams take a stride of where they want to go this year.
Yeah,
very good.
Ed, when you look at Menor, I mean, you talked about it, this last season. Look at their losses. I mean, a 1-point overtime loss to Cleveland Heights, a 3-point loss to Riverside, 2 points to Ignatius, and 3 points to Ignatius in the playoffs. I mean, those are all close games. If they pull any of those out, they're easily undefeated, and they're who knows where they would have went in the playoffs. So it's interesting to see some of these teams, and what they do this season. Off of last season. But I think I agree there. Menor could be a team to look out for if they can turn those close games into some wins.
Losing 4 games by a total of 9 points is almost a statistical improbability.
No kidding.
It's just a lot of things. The ball bounces in weird ways in football. We all know that. As cliched as that is, but it certainly rings true here. Sean, how about let's get the conference schedule up, and Noah can go over what we got for week 1 in the Greater Cleveland Conference.
Brunswick will be taking on Berea Med Park. That'll be a great game. Coach Cole Carter's first game. And then Trotwood Madison will be taking on Cleveland Heights. Euclid will be taking on Austintown Finch. Stowe will be taking on Medina. Massillon Jackson will be taking on Menor. That should be a really great game. Last year's week 1 matchup was pretty close. And then Avon Lake and Stronzo. That would be a great debut for Coach Jason Trustnick. And that is the week 1 schedule for the Greater Cleveland Conference.
It's also mentioned here, Shaker Heights will be hosting Willoughby South as well. So I want to make sure we hook up our friends from Shaker Heights, especially when they got a duo of Cornell Beard and Trey McNutt coming back. I think that scoreboard in Shaker Heights is going to be changing quite often there. So it's a very exciting conference, one that the majority of us have played a lot of those teams in there when we were playing, and obviously Josh with the experience of being in the Greater Cleveland Conference for the last few years. Really, really good stuff coming out of that conference. So we look forward to it. Again, Noah Jacobson, he's got the Greater Cleveland Conference as GCC for you all year long. All right, let's shift over to the Suburban League National Conference. Josh Jeffy, he is back. He is probably not well rested, but he is for our show. He's back, and let's see what we got going on in the Suburban League National Conference.
Thank you, Ed. It's good to see you guys back. And,
yes, I may be tired in life, but I got plenty of energy for high school football. Looking forward to getting back out there. You know what? The Natty is looking real strong now with the addition of Solon. And one big thing that happened in the Suburban National this year is that all the teams in the conference are in Division Two now. Stowe and Wadsworth did drop down to Division Two, so all the teams are in Division Two, Region 5, and Region 6. So that's some awesome things. So looking at the previews real quick, we're going to start off with the new kids on the block, the Solon Comets. They are coached by Brian Wisniewski. Last year, kind of a weird year. Their last year in the GCC, they did finish 1-8. They did not play 10 games as their game with Euclid did get canceled. They did not win a conference game at all. So Brian Wisniewski is kind of looking to reset his team. This year, they have a new starting quarterback. That would be Jake Sanders. He is a sophomore, but they do have a couple really good stud sophomores that are already getting some Division One offers, and that is Kyer Robinson and Brady Bush. So look for those guys to really be a key cogs in the Solon Comets offense this year. One key figure they have coming back on the defensive end of the ball is Ben Friedman. He was their leading tackler last year. So they have a solid foundation. Hopefully for the Comets, they're able to, in the new conference, they're able to get things off to a fresh start. Another team that is slowly but surely going through a rebuilding process is the Stowe Monroe Falls Bulldogs. Last year, they were 1-9, 1-5 in the conference. Head coach Martin Potter, in his third season, did admit to the Akron Beacon Journal when they were talking about his team that the rebuild process has been slow, but they do also have some key foundational pieces, all which are juniors, and that starts with three-year starter entering his third year starting, Jake Harrington. He is their quarterback. This year, they really need to protect him. He was sacked approximately 60 times the last 2 years. So in order for any quarterback to be solid, he needs to be on his feet and not on his back. So those are some key things that they are going to do there. They do have two juniors that are getting some run at the collegiate level, and that's tight end Andy Rickelman and wide receiver / cornerback Dalen Keeling. They're looking for him to be a key figure on both the offensive end at wide receiver and defensive end at cornerback. And one thing that Martin Potter did do this year was he added former CVCA head coach Dan Lartham to the staff as the offensive coordinator. And in that Akron Beacon Journal piece, Coach Potter said that this has given him an opportunity to be kind of the CEO head coach overseeing everything. And hopefully that'll help them. They do have 14 returning lettermen coming back. So that's a great start for them. Hoping they're going to change their luck around and finally start putting some wins together. Next in the Suburban Natty is the North Royalton Bears. You guys last week talked to Nick Chuli. Great interview. Longtime coach of the Bears. You know, last season was a little tough for him, and you can go back to our YouTube page and watch that interview or Spotify and listen to it. But, you know, last year they had 6 games where they lost the lead in the fourth quarter. And that's just kind of a thing where this year they're going to have to learn how to finish those games. And they do have a 3-year starter in Joe Kinney coming back. That was one thing that Coach Chuli was really happy about, having that veteran leadership at the quarterback position. To go along with Kinney, you have Jack Buckholtz, Grady Ball, another 3-year starter, and Mannix Wasco is also going to be some key figures for the Bears. Saw them play last year against Brecksville. It was a great game. Joe Kinney was just he was running for his life a lot in that game. So hopefully they can protect him, but he can make some plays when he's able to, and that's going to be a key piece for them going into this year. Now, their rival in the battle of the golden toe or golden shoe, I could be wrong. It's only my second year in the conference, so I will get that correct. But that's the Brecksville. Never mind. He's not paying attention.
Man.
The Bees.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. The Brecksville Bees
my
coming
mute
in.
button stuck.
That's all right. Last year, they finished overall 6-6 with a 2-4 record in the conference, but they did win a playoff game 30-3 against Westlake. They are head coached by Jason Black.
they graduated quarterback Colin Siebert last year, so they're going to have to fill the void there. But they do have some great pieces on the defensive end, starting with Evan Rizzo, who Coach Jason Black, we had him on a couple weeks ago, said he had close to 200 tackles on the year. He's their everything ball hawk player, looking to continue that. Caden Pluhar, the wide receivers, looking to be a big piece in the offensive end for that. And running back Jacob Eterovich. Jason Black also mentioned him as a key piece. I remember seeing him last year in the Royalton game. Good, solid runner. Only looking to get better as he gets some experience on that varsity end. Going back to it, you guys had plenty of Suburban Natty coaches on when I wasn't here, but guess what? As a good friend of show and co-host, I do watch the show when I'm on vacation. So I had the pleasure of listening to head coach Jeff Fox of the Nordonia Knights. You guys were talking about in the previous conferences teams to be on the lookout for. In the Natty, Nordonia would be that team for me. Bring it back quarterback Ben Chesser, who had a solid season. He can not only pass the ball, but he can run the ball. The key thing for Nordonia is they're returning 20 Lettermen to this year's squad. That experience, especially in this conference, will pay dividends for them. Some other players of note, and we had him on. He was a player of the week last year, was running back Rocco Di Lorenzo, stud running back going into his senior year. Last year, he had 955 yards rushing, looking to get over the 1,000 mark here. Defensive line, Jordan Jackson is an absolute stud. Watch for him to really cause havoc on the defensive end. You have the wide receiver, Colin Atha, and they returned 3 starters to their offensive line. And for high school, that is huge. Would you have that cohesiveness on the offensive line and those guys can play well together and they play at a high level, you have every amount of success that can happen. Last year, they did lose to Twinsburg in the playoffs, 22-10, but they did finish overall 8-3. 4-2 on the conference, but they're looking to really take that next step and compete with the big boys. Another team that is looking to take that next step is the Twinsburg Tigers. Got their first playoff win last year against Nordonia since 2010. Coach Salters has a culture built there that a lot of teams in the area would be jealous of. Looking for them to really have a great year. They did finish overall 7-5 last year. They were 3-3 in the conference. Those 3 losses came to Nordonia, Hudson, and Watson, Wadsworth, Hudson, and Nordonia. So, they got to get over that hump. But being led by Joey Pollock, who is going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the area, especially in Division II, you can't go wrong with that. Rob Herndon on the offense and defensive end will be a big piece. Will Cunningham, huge offensive lineman. It's great to have those kind of players on the offensive line protecting your quarterback. And Christian Dunbar is going to be a solid piece on defense for the Tigers. Really, they also have 14 returners coming, Letterman coming back. So I'm really looking forward to watching how Coach Salters and the Tigers really improve this season. Then we get to the 2 stalwarts of the conference. When you talk about the Natty, and Sean, you know about this, it starts with Hudson and Wadsworth. We're going to start with Hudson first, who last season went 9-3, 5-1 in the conference. They did have 2 playoff wins. They did lose Ian Ludwig to graduation. They did lose him for quite a good amount of the season last year due to injury. Some of the key players coming back, and I watched this guy fill in for Ian Ludwig when he was out, and that's Brennan Funyak. He's looking to pick up a lot of the slack, which I think he will. Quarterback Nathan Judy is going to be a very important piece. Offensive lineman Jake Clapper, too, huge specimen on the offensive line. I remember watching him last year. Really good feet, good hands. He's going to be an important piece. And Louis Casterlin, wide receiver / running back, he's kind of the speed guy that Hudson's going to be using this year. So really looking forward to seeing them. They do have a lot of new players, but Hudson's one of those programs in the Natty that you kind of don't rebuild, you reload. And I think that's what they're going to continue to do this year. Always going to be in the mix for the Suburban Natty Championship. Another team that's going to be like that is the Wadsworth Grizzlies. They did not lose a conference game last year. Coach Justin Todd in his 12th season. Last year they went 9-3, 6-0 in the conference. They did have one playoff win against Brunswick, but then they had a really tough contested playoff matchup against Medina. They ended up losing. But they did lose a couple key figures in their offensive game, and that's quarterback Will Stack and running back Kyle Figueray. So they're going to have to replace them. But as great programs do, they will be able to. Running back Gavin Madigan is going to be toting the rock for the Grizzlies this year. Also, look out for Jacob Ernest, the tight end / linebacker. I would consider Wadsworth kind of the tight end of the Natty. They always seem to produce really good talent at the tight end position. Division I talent, with that being said. Sean, I believe you know one that for your Notre Dame Fire Red Irish, that is a Wadsworth graduate, if I'm not mistaken. Mute.
When he played at Wadsworth, he was the quarterback. Mitchell
Right.
Evans was the starting quarterback.
Right. But he's a great tight end at the University of Notre Dame. On the offensive line, Eli Kaufman will be anchoring that group. And also look out for Colton Levette. He is another tight end that's up and coming. So with Wadsworth, they have a lot of incoming sophomores that play. And that's the thing with Wadsworth. They have a lot of sophomores that play valuable minutes on Friday nights on the varsity level. And that's only helping them as their solid stud players graduate. They're able to just kind of fill right in and once again have a great season. So, guys, I'm not being biased, but I am being biased. Suburban Natty, ever since I made the switch, I missed the GCC. Noah's doing a great job. In fact, he's taken that coverage of that conference to a level that I probably could not. But with this conference, we got the Natty. Fellas, it's fireworks every week.
Yeah, it's true. No doubt about that. Have at it, Sean.
I was going to say, Sean's yawning over there.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. Appreciate the support.
Sorry, long day. My apologies. No, I was just going to kind of jump on that point with you. You look at the national division in the Suburban League, and top to bottom, I know you try to separate them out by tiers. There's just not a lot of tiers. There's a lot of good teams. Like, we talk about the Southwestern Conference being a meat grinder. We talk about the GCC being all uber competitive. I would venture to say, and again, I'm the guy that doesn't cover the national division. This is probably the most competitive conference / division in the conference that we cover all year. And I wouldn't be surprised if whoever comes out of this division the least bloody will probably be a odds-on favorite. Nobody's going to want to play any of these teams in the playoffs because they're going to be so battle-hardened come week 11, week 12. Like, it's insane to me.
Yeah, I used to cover the Suburban Natty, as Josh likes to call it now, and that conference is insane. And when you add a team like Solon to it, who is a traditional powerhouse, and they are smack dab in the middle geographically of all of those schools. It is one of the best moves I think a team could possibly have made, quite honestly. And then it's not to say that Solon couldn't compete with the Greater Cleveland Conference, because they've proven over the years that they can hang with the big boys, with the big division, I should probably more or less say. But this fit for Solon is just too perfect. It makes so much sense, and it really adds another dimension to the Suburban League National Conference. Besides. I think you answered kind of pretty much the questions that I would have had there, Josh, with some of the teams to look out for. Stowe, Martin Porter goes from Breastsville Broadview Heights to Stowe, and Stowe had some tremendous years in years past. From Stowe's perspective, they dropped to Division II, which, quite honestly, dropping from Division I, Region 1 to Division II, Region 5 isn't much of a drop-off. When you got Archbishop Hoban living there, and Twinsburg and some of their conference rivals. So from a playoff perspective, I don't really think that helps them too much. They're going to need to win some games to get in. But a team like Stowe, what can they do to get out of the basement of from the last few years? I mean, what kind of job is Martin Porter looking at here?
Well, I mean, he admitted it again. He admitted it that this was going to be a rebuild, and he confessed process over progress. So they're really trying to nail down culture. You know, Jake Harrington's been the starter since he was a freshman, going into his third year. And Coach Porter really thinks that Harrington has really made a huge leap in becoming a leader for the team. I mean, they got 14 lettermen coming back. So they have to protect him. They have to continue to build an offense around him, and I think that's why they brought in the new OC, just to kind of establish something different. They do have some players. It's just a matter of, like any kind of high profile program like Stowe is, you have to. It may take time to get it right, but once a coach gets in there and gets things on that trajectory up. And, a good example would be one right in the conference, and that would be Coach Charles Salters of Twinsburg. They were down in the dumps, and then it took him to his third year to really make that turnaround and to really kind of switch the gears to go north. And now for them, the ceiling is as high as it has ever been. And I think that's what the hope is for Coach Porter and Stowe.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of teams that are looking for redemption this year. North Royalton, as we talked about with Coach Truly, Coach Black with Brecksville Broadview Heights. But Nordonia, I agree with you about Nordonia. Nordonia is a traditional powerhouse, and their losses were not bad losses. I mean, you're losing. You had Wadsworth and Hudson, I believe, back to back, and those were last year they were the top of the division, and Nordonia always reloads, Wadsworth always reloads, Hudson always reloads, so it's those three right now are where the Twinsburgs and the Brecksville Broadview Heights and everywhere else is trying to get to. Kind of similar to what the echelon looks like in the Southwestern Conference. I think you're having a similar establishment here in the Suburban League Natty.
Agreed.
All right, Sean, what's going on for week 1 in the Natty?
Well, a lot of these games we kind of already mentioned, but we'll go through them. Talmadge against Brecksville. Highland, big game. This is a huge game for week 1. Highland against Hudson. Nordonia Bedford, another great game. Maple Heights, North Royalton. I think this one has a chance to be really sneaky good. Olmsted Falls, Solon. We'll see how Solon's going to redeem itself coming off of last year. Medina and Stowe, another big test for Stowe coming out the gate. This is a huge game in my book. Twinsburg, Aurora. This was a great game last year, looking to repeat it this year. And Wadsworth, Barberton, kind of a backyard rivalry, so to speak, for these two teams. So solid game as usual.
There you have it. That is the Suburban League Natty, courtesy of Josh Jeffy by way of Sean Duffy and this tremendous PowerPoint there. So we're about an hour in. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will wrap up with the Suburban League American Division with Sean and the new Cleveland West Conference with myself, and then we will tell you where we are going this week. This is Sports on Tap. This is the high school football show brought to you by Ray Felton State Farm Insurance, and we will see you quickly on the other side. Stay tuned for a word from our sponsors.
Sports on Tap's high school football coverage is on every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Watch live on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Sports on Tap's high school football coverage is presented by Raymond Felton State Farm.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
Hand and built leather goods. Leather goods built for life. Made by hand in the USA, all goods are made with veg-tanned leather. Some of the best quality around and made by a U.S. veteran. Check out their website, www.handbuiltleather.com. We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com. All right, everybody ready?
Yep.
No.
Welcome back to Sports on Tap. This is our high school football preview show brought to you by Ray Felton State Farm Insurance. I want to thank him and all of our other sponsors. You just got to hear a word from them. And make sure you stay tuned at the end of our show to get another word from all of our awesome sponsors. All right, we have already covered the Southwestern Conference, the Greater Cleveland Conference, and the Suburban League National Conference. Let's shift over to my cohort, my compadre, my colleague, Sean Duffy, with the Suburban League American Conference. Sean, take it away.
Thank you, Ed. And we'll first start off, as we always do, with the teams that are likely to be at the top of the heap coming to the end of the season. First off with Aurora. Aurora's returning 12 lettermen back from last year, specifically quarterback Ryan Dwyer and defensive lineman Tommy Tartabini and Lucas Manderbach. These two guys are going to anchor a defensive line that was very impactful for Aurora last year going into late in the season. Again, Aurora is doing what they always do. They're reloading. They have some playmakers on both sides of the ball here. Look for Aurora to continue to kind of steady the ship for the American Division. Up there with Aurora, like it was last year, came down to the wire last game of the season. Highland. Highland is an interesting. We had Coach Gibbons on. He talked a lot about the team and the returning players, specifically at running back Casey Myers. We got Carson Noonan, Ryan Zwiedek, Ben Coyne, and Brady Bendow. These are guys that he mentioned specifically that they're going to lean on this year. Look for Highland to be a very run-first, run-centric team. Similar to what they were last year. They have their strength is their offensive and defensive lines. They got a good running game with Casey Miser. And they should be able to control pace of the game. Revere, an interesting team to look at. Revere's returning 16 starters from last year, specifically quarterback Luke Ferris, who was really turned it on towards the end of the year for the Minutemen. Brody Bard and Rowan Klein also back for them. Revere's looking to get their first winning season since 2018. Keep in mind, last year they made the playoffs at 4-6 and got a playoff victory in the first week of the playoffs. So they're on that upswing for the Minutemen. But it's very, very interesting to see a team like Revere. My dark horse of the American Division is Talmadge, the Blue Devils of Talmadge, and I'll tell you the reason why. Two main players coming back for them. Quarterback Ryan Lovelace and wide receiver Caleb Reef-Snyder. These two guys connected for over 1,200 yards passing and receiving for passing for Lovelace last year. So many touchdowns. These guys were a connection, and they're coming back. They have an offensive line that's very good that can protect the quarterback. Their defense was on the come last year. And again, Talmadge got off to a slow start last year. They were 1-4 going into the season, and then rebounded towards the end of the year and ended up finishing 5-5, which is a pretty healthy swing there for a team that started out on the schneid a little bit to start that game. Copley, they are looking to bounce back from a 1-5 team. They have Gabriel Mansell, quarterback who's a transfer from St. Vincent St. Mary. This is his second year with Copley, and also Scooby Stanford, another transfer at wide receiver. Look for these two to be very, very connected in the offensive passing game. Cuyahoga Falls, 2-8, looking to rebound, get better. They return quarterback Joey Earl, who's in his second year starting, but he has also played all 4 years at different positions. Running back Xavier Lindsay, and they also have 2 new coordinators, which is good for the head coach, who mentioned that now last year he coached the defense mostly. He was the defensive coordinator and the head coach. They hired a new defensive coordinator, and they also hired a new offensive coordinator. So now you can have 2 coordinators running those two sides and let the head coach be the head coach. Barberton finished the year 7-5 last year and had a really, really good year. Unfortunately, the cupboard's a bit bare for the Magics this year when it comes to playmakers. A lot of young talent. They do have really good offensive and defensive linemen, specifically Josiah Wright and Elijah McDougall. Those guys were studs for the Magic last year. They're going to be studs again this year. They're dominant up front. They do a great job. But again, it's just a young team for Barberton, kind of the wild card coming into this season. And obviously, Kent Roosevelt is what Kent Roosevelt is. They are, again, a team that's looking to build on a pretty good season last year. They're going to have to replace some of their playmakers from last year. Some transferred. We had some graduates, but looking at Kent Roosevelt, they may make a run. But that's pretty much everybody in the American Division. Again, I really do think all roads go through Highland and Aurora. But don't be surprised if we're talking about Talmadge come week 8, week 9, as a team that has an opportunity to not only win the division, but actually have a really good shot at getting a home game in the playoffs come playoff time.
Hey, Sean. Yeah, Sean. I mean, great work as always. We talked to Coach Gibbons. Highland has a lot coming back as they normally do. Aurora and Highland right now are the top of the class here. Barberton, they always seem to stick their noses into that little triumvirate there. So Talmadge is an interesting team. They've had good success in years past, but they're certainly no team to sleep on. Kent Roosevelt started out hot last year, and they kind of faded at the end there. For Kent Roosevelt, do they have enough in the tank to be able to throw haymakers and be able to withstand a few of them themselves as they get deeper in the season this year?
I think they have the opportunity to do that. I think, again, they're one of those X factor teams coming in to this year. You don't really know how those teams are going to react to the season. I think when you look at a team like Kent Roosevelt and even a team like Copley, there's a lot of question marks as to, are they going to be able to replace their playmakers from last year? Are they going to be able to keep that speed? Are they going to be able to be effective when it counts? And I think when I saw them, when I covered the game, when they played Barberton, you could tell there was a big delineation between Barberton and Kent Roosevelt. And it was execution. It was, keeping your head in those situations when things weren't going well. And again, they ran into a bust. I mean, Barberton was a good team last year. They were 7-5, but I guarantee you those 5 losses were not blowouts by any stretch. They were close games that they lost at the end. But yeah, Kent Roosevelt's a team that I think I would watch. I think they have a good team. A good idea of the players that they want to use. But again, I don't know what to expect from them, because last year, like you said, they started out hot and then completely fizzled towards the end of the year. But again, going back to my dark horse pick to win the American Division, Talmadge, again, they're just returning a lot of people back. That's going to help them continue their success. If they can get off to a better start than they did last year, I think that momentum carries them through that tough stretch, because they start out with Brecksville, and then they have Ellett, and then they have, I believe they have Aurora and Highland early in their season, if I'm not mistaken. I was looking at that in the Akron Beacon Journal today, but I know they play all of their quote unquote monster games early. And if you can make some hay right there and get some wins, not only does that help you in the league, in the conference, but also helps you playoff wise. If you could take down a team like Aurora and take down a team like Highland early on, those computer points are going to pay out for you and help your ranking coming into playoff time. I know I'm getting way into Ed's area, and I should not be talking like this, but again, I try to learn stuff via osmosis through Ed. I don't know everything he talks about, but I pay attention.
I don't know everything you know either, Sean. Works out both ways there. So Sean, who do we got going on? What do you got going on in the first week of the Suburban League American Conference play?
Well, week one is kind of a hodgepodge. We have a few crossover games, but we'll start off with Aurora going to travel to take on Twinsburg. Barberton will travel to take on Stowe. Amherst going to take on Copley. Akron Firestone will be traveling to take on the Black Tigers of Cuyahoga Falls. Highland and Hudson, as Josh mentioned, huge game right there for both those teams. That sets the table for their season going forward. Ravenna will travel to take on Kent Roosevelt. Woodridge will travel to take on Revere, and Talmadge will take on the Bees of Brecksville.
That's
Too late.
He's
Too late.
Listen,
Josh is not even giving him a good effort. Like, I thought it sounded good, but he's
just mad. He's mad because I couldn't get off the mute button early enough for his little thing. That's all it is.
Yeah, for yours you're fine, but
The
for me, little tag team, there's nothing there. So yeah, bad effort.
Oh wow, bad effort. I didn't even get.
He's
good effort.
feisty.
I got bad
He's
effort.
feisty.
He's feisty tonight.
Back with a vengeance, fellas.
Oh dear.
Oh boy, here we go.
That
See,
is,
this is what's going to happen all year. It's going to be a constant back and forth between the Suburban League guys, American versus National. It's already starting.
Oh boy.
You will refer to it as the Natty, please.
I will not refer to it as the Natty.
The EVP of social media content is not strong as he normally does here.
He's an angry elf tonight.
All right, I will try to restore some order here.
There you go.
We'll shift over to the newly formed Cleveland West Conference. I'm pretty excited about this conference, and believe me, that's no disrespect to Holy Name and Elyria Catholic, who and Fairview for that matter. Great teams to cover. Holy Name and Elyria Catholic had two of the better playoff runs in the last few years for that conference. But they go to the North Coast Conference. They realign themselves with some traditional Catholic private school teams, kind of a reprise of the North Coast League. And we wish them all the best in those games there. Last year, 5 teams from the now Cleveland West Conference made the playoffs. Westlake and Valley Forge both lost in the first round of their games. Bay also lost a very tough one. We'll get to Bay here in a minute. Buckeye had one of their most successful seasons in school history. They won 2 playoff games, including taking out the number 2 seed Norton. Norton was undefeated. Buckeye went to Norton and took them out. Rocky River won their first playoff game against Clyde, but they ran into an absolute buzzsaw in the Mansfield Tigers. And then Buckeye similarly ran into a buzzsaw in the form of Tiffin Columbian, and ended their season quite efficiently there. But so a lot of successful teams in the Cleveland West Conference as we start play for this season. Getting to that, a couple of the teams here that I don't have a whole lot of information on, but we start with Valley Forge and Normandy. Valley Forge, they picked up a couple of transfers from Parma last year, and they've had a pretty successful season. They're one of the few teams that beat Buckeye in conference play. That just doesn't happen very often. But they lose Danny Keywell and running backs Ben Farson and Nick Mankins to graduation. Valley Forge always seems to have a good running game. I don't expect that to change this year as they play here at Byers Field. Actually, I don't even know. Byers Field is, as far as last time I read, is closed right now. So we're looking to see what's going to happen with their games here for both them and Normandy for that matter. Now Normandy, they bring back their best player is quarterback Elijah Gray. He is phenomenal. He's very, very good. He's been primarily responsible for their offense the last 2 seasons. Now he's a senior. He comes back We'll see what kind of supporting cast he has this year. But Elijah Gray is electric. He can run the ball. He can pass the ball. He does everything for the Normandy Invaders. As long as he's healthy and playing, the Invaders have a shot. Last year, the Lakewood Rangers, they just missed the Division II Region 6 playoffs. They started the season 2-1. They had a big victory over Clearview. Clearview had a very, very good season. They won over 10 games, and they almost rode that win against Clearview all the way to the playoffs. They needed to beat Brush in week 10, could not get it done, and they did not get enough help from their beaten opponents or other teams to get them in. Alex Simons graduates, but Jalen Chappell comes back. Jalen Chappell, a very electric receiver and free safety for the Lakewood Rangers. With Coach Mike Povasic. We'll see what Lakewood can do going into this season. Westlake, we talked with the coaches from Westlake and North Olmsted. Tim Brediger from North Olmsted. They had a lot of injuries last year. You lose a player like Colin Willard, that's going to destroy most of your offense. And now you do your best to adjust, obviously. Tommy Horsfall stepped in at quarterback, had a good year. He's back this year. Michael Pacifiumi comes back as a running back. They got, they're traditionally a pretty solid team. I think last year, unfortunately, their best players just they weren't healthy, and it's definitely showed. For Westlake, they do have a new head coach. The plan was always to transition from Coach Jason Hall. Logan Yantek takes over. He was the offensive coordinator last year. They scored over 30 points a game last year, the Demons did. The Demons were pretty good. They were good enough to host a playoff game. Unfortunately, didn't go very well against the Brecksville Broadview Heights Bees. But this year, they do return Sam Boucheri. This is a third-year starting quarterback. They do lose Matthew Porcelli. He was an all-world running back for Westlake and linebacker. But Chase Kelly comes back. Probably my favorite kicker, definitely in the conference, is Sean Evilsizer. This dude is a monster. He hit 50-yard field goals like they were 30 yards last year. And without his leg, some of those W's could have easily turned into L's. He returns this year.
Former player of the week.
Former player of the week. Not only that, he was extremely proud to be player of the week. I was so happy about that. So Sean Evilsizer might be one of my favorite players. And you may have heard I used to kick a football every once in a while. So I'm very biased towards them, and I'm not afraid to admit that. For Buckeye, the Buckeye Bucks, they are the reigning defending couple-time GLC East champions. Now, they were co-champions last year with Holy Name and Valley Forge. They bring back senior rushers Troy McCann, juniors Austin Heyer. This dude, every time he caught a ball, I think it was a touchdown. He was extremely efficient in the passing game. Trey Weinmeyer comes back as well. Brandon Bonnet, a very, very good kicker as a sophomore. He'll come back as a junior. He'll also probably contribute on the offense and defensive ends as well. And they're coached by Coach Greg Dennison, just one of the all-time winning coaches in Medina County history, having coached for Wadsworth for almost 2 decades. Took a step back. He had a year at Brunswick as an assistant coach under Luke Beal. He has come back with quite the vengeance. Buckeye, I tell you what, there's a lot of questions, I think, with Buckeye when they joined the Great Lakes Conference because they weren't a bigger fish fishing in a smaller pond with some of the teams in the Lorain County League. But since they have joined this league, they are punching up and they are punching hard. They don't normally get bullied around in the league like this, and they've certainly shown that they can hang with the Division II teams in this conference. For a couple other teams here, I think we covered pretty much everybody up to this point. 2 other teams. Let's start with the Bay Rockets, coached by Ron Rutt. Bay, kind of similar to Menor last year. They had 3 very, very close losses. They gave Rocky River all they can handle. They were a missed field goal away from winning that game. That was a game in overtime that decided the conference championship. They do bring back most of their skilled players. Back on the offensive line, Liam Albright. He was at All-State. He was a district second teamer as a junior. Even Evan Mandarin moves over from one guard to the other. They rushed for almost 2,500 yards last year. So Bay very, very effective on the ground. And leading the charge there is going to be now junior running back Rocco Hereditario. This dude had 900 yards. He had 12 touchdowns. He also played defense. He's back. With Brendan Spellman being injured last year, that opened the door for Hereditario. And he kicked through that door. He's going to be paired with junior Charlie Rogers. Charlie Rogers wasn't able to play for most of the year last year either, but he's back. So you're gonna have a two-headed monster in the running game with Hereditario and Charlie Rogers. And then for quarterbacks, you have Michael Farrell. He comes back as their starting quarterback. So there's a lot of optimism from the Bay Rockets from Coach Ron Rutt, and we'll see what they can do. They had a tough loss to Defiance in the playoffs last year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Rockets can do this year. The class of the Western Conference, the Western Division, has been the Rocky River Pirates. Coach Josh Wells, they scored a ton of points last year, and when you graduate an all-Ohio quarterback like Julian Patty, and some of the stars they had, Nick DeSalvo, that dude could have ran for 250 yards every single week if Coach Wells wanted him to. But they had the team that was able to spread the ball around and get a lot of players lots of yards. Returning on offense, senior tackle William Freeney and Orrin Grieve at receiver. They did add a junior quarterback from St. Vincent St. Mary. Ryan Taylor comes to Rocky River. He earned a few starts last year. He accounted for almost 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns through the air, 5 on the ground. So that's a big pickup to step in for Julian Patty this year. Defense, they got 9 starters back on defense. So we've always known them to be a very hard-hitting team, usually led by the Beebe brothers. And yes, there is another Beebe in the pipeline. I thought they were all gone, but there's another one. He's a sophomore, but I'm sure we'll talk about him in years to come. Josh Mammers, he's a really, really good baseball player. He's also a really, really good football player. He comes back to lead the secondary, and Campbell Kowski also comes back to lead the secondary as well. They're also going to play a little bit of offense as you do in Division III. So there's a lot going on for Rocky River. Very successful team there. So with Rocky River and Bay, 2 very, very evenly matched teams. Now they're going to mix it up consistently with Buckeye and consistently with Valley Forge and Lakewood. You don't have this West-East thing anymore where you have those crossover games. So top to bottom, I mean, 5 of these teams made the playoffs last year. Wouldn't surprise me if 5 or 6 teams make the playoffs again this year in the Cleveland Western Conference. But I would say right now, personally, I think that Rocky River, right now, they're the ones on top until someone beats them. And Bay had a real good look at it last year. Buckeye's a very, very tough team. There's like no mistake about that one. I think there's a really, really good shot that Westlake, they score a lot of points. When you score a lot of points, you give yourselves a chance to win. North Olmsted, if they can stay healthy, that's the key for North Olmsted. A team like North Olmsted, think a few years back, if Jared Kelly and Xavier Balson weren't able to get through the season healthy, I think they would have struggled there. And unfortunately, that's what happened with Colin Willard last year. And Coach Brediger is trying to find ways to get other players on track there. Buckeye and Rocky River did not play last year. So those two teams, when they battle, whether it's a regular season game or in what used to be the GLC Conference Championship, I'm looking forward to that game. Buckeye and Rocky River, big fan of that game. I can't wait for that one to happen. Sean, how about let's pop on and see who do we got in the first week of Cleveland West Conference action. Thank you, sir. All right, a full 8-team slate for the Cleveland Western Conference. Cleveland West Conference. I keep saying Western. I'll see if I'll see if the CWC works for me. Cleveland Central Catholic will visit Bay Village. Cloverleaf and Buckeye. That is a traditional Medina County matchup. You might be hearing that one on WEOL there. They are the purveyors of the Medina County matchup. That is one of the few that you'll have this year. Lakewood will take on John Marshall. East Cleveland Shaw will take on Normandy. North Ridgeville and North Olmsted. That's a backyard rivalry there. Very, very, North Olmsted and North Ridgeville. North Ridgeville, as Rob has talked about earlier, they have a lot of high expectations here this year. So let's see if North Olmsted can rise to the challenge there. Rocky River will take on Painesville Harvey. Valley Forge and Gilmore Academy. That's always a tough one for Valley Forge. Gilmore is a very, very good team. So that's a heck of a test for Valley Forge to start the season. And we mentioned Westlake taking on Midview. That is going to be. I like that game. I like that game a lot. So we're going to see what happens there. All right, that ends all of our conference previews here. Starting next week, we will have our week to week our recaps of the games that we have. But we're also going to talk about the games that we're going to be at. So without further ado, where is Sports on Tap going to be this Friday night?
Who wants to start us off? Should I get it started? I think I will. I'm going to head down the road as the Midview Middies host the Westlake Demons. Two teams with, Westlake, obviously, a new coach. We have Coach Armstrong, who's trying to bring that program back together. I think this could be a really sneaky good game. And both teams trying to get on the right foot early on. At Midview, it's always a great atmosphere, great place to watch a football game. And these two teams are close together. So I think it's going to be a great attended game, a lot of fun to watch, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be a fun one to be at, and I'm excited.
Go ahead, Noah.
Where's Noah going?
Well, guys, there is no off season with me at Sports on Tap. It's been a really busy off season covering baseball, softball, interviewing coaches this past couple of months. But there's no other place I'd better be with Sports on Tap, covering all the best coverage that we do in Northeast Ohio. And in our history at Sports on Tap, there is one stadium that we have never done, and I just can't wait to be there on Friday night. I will be down at Cleveland Browns Stadium on Friday night to see the Avon Eagles, who've won the SWC since they've really joined, and taking on the 11th-time state champion at St. Ignatius Wildcats. These are two powerhouse programs that are going to be really going at it in each other in a great atmosphere with great students, as there's great coaches, great players. I mean, this is what you want in high school football in a stadium like that. But it's going to be a great game between Avon and St. Ignatius, two great programs going at it down at Cleveland Browns Stadium, and I'm excited to be down there.
Wait, is Dr. Hoops going to plunge into the dog pound? Are you going to jump in head first if the stands are packed and let him crowd surf a little bit?
Maybe. Be surfing my way through.
Well, I will go next since the Natty always is first.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's a little Suburban League trash talk. But I'm going to actually head to Twinsburg as the Tigers look to avenge last year's 17-7 loss to the Aurora Greenmen. That's going to be a fun one to be at. Let's see what happens this year as this game moves to Twinsburg. Colt Salters and the Tigers, I'll be seeing you there. Let's go, Natty. I'm looking for a good game, but, I got to root for my conference here.
Oh, do
division.
You?
I do. No rooting interest. I'll be 100% down the line until I get there.
So you have journalistic integrity. You have journalistic integrity, eh?
Yes, for the most part. Until it comes to the Natty, baby.
Yeah.
At least someone's willing to admit that. I have zero problem admitting that I am for pretty much anyone that's a kicker or for Brunswick.
Well, gentlemen, I went back and forth here. I went back and forth, and I said to myself, what's one thing you need to work on? Especially after last week's discussion with the Brecksville coach, is I got to work on my B's pronunciation. So, your boy, Professor
Got to work on your
Heights,
timing, too. That's all right.
You know what, Josh? Again, we'll have a meeting. We'll have a meeting after the show to discuss timing. You've been off for a little bit, so maybe your timing's a little bit off. I don't know. We'll see. But I this week am going to be traveling down to Old Brecksville Broadview Heights for the Talent Blue Devils, traveling to take on the Brecksville Broadview Heights, the Bees. I'm excited. It's been a while since I've been in Brecksville. I'm really looking forward to it. I think these are two really good matchups, or two teams really, and it's going to be a really good matchup. But guys, we are now officially kicking off high school football.
Professor
We are
Hype
kicking
alert.
off.
Professor Hype
We are
alert.
kicking it off, baby. And you know what that means. If you want the best coverage in the state of Ohio about high school football, there is nowhere else to go. I put us up against anybody. Bring them all. I don't care. We're better than everybody. We have the best in-depth coverage. We go over these conferences. We know these conferences like the back of our hand. We have great videos. We have great analysis by our one and only Ed Dick. Noah Jacobson is doing everything but actually being a water boy at some of these scrimmages. I mean, at a certain point, I think he's the ball boy for a couple of these teams. I think he's helping out. I think he's running routes. I don't know. Maybe he's doing something like that. Rob's got all the graphics on point. Guys, we are entering the 2024 season. This is, I believe, our 11th year doing Sports on Tap in its current formation. That's insane. 11 years. Now, one thing I will say is we get better every single year, and this year is no different. So the only way you're going to see this coverage is if you are hitting the subscribe button, smashing the notifications bell on YouTube so you can see all of our highlight videos, all of our interviews, all of our weekly shows breaking down the best coverage in the land. Gentlemen, it is now week 1 of high school football season. The greatest part of the year is every team has an opportunity to win a state championship. They all have the same record. I'm done.
Atta boy!
That is exactly how you do it. That is Professor Hype taking us through and finishing up the show for us. So there you have it. Rob will be at Westlake versus Midview. Noah will be at St. Ignatius versus Avon at Cleveland Brown Stadium. Josh will be at Aurora versus Twinsburg. And Sean will be at Talmadge versus Brecksville. All right, that's going to do it for our preview show. So again, starting next week, we will have recaps of the games of the week, each of our conferences. We'll see if we can get a few players on to talk about their performance, their off season, and what they got going on. And we will be doing the Power 10 a little bit later in the season. It will not be on this show. We will be on our social media outlets. So make sure you're checking us out on our website, sportsontapodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. That's where you're going to get live updates this Friday night of all 4 of these games. You're going to get, make sure you follow us on Threads at SOT_podcast. Our Facebook, of course, is Sports on Tap, and we are on Spotify as well at Sports on Tap. All right, stay tuned for a word from our sponsors. If you would like to become a sponsor, this is the time to do it. We're gonna be on the air every Monday night. For maybe taking Tuesday. I think we have a Tuesday night coming up for Labor Day, but every Monday from now until December, we will be talking. We'll be talking high school football. Plenty of opportunities to get your business out there. That's what we do. Before and after and during the show. So we have plenty of opportunities for that. So make sure you email us at sportsontap@gmail.com if you're interested in becoming a sponsor with Sports on Tap. For Rob Troutman, Dr. Hoops, Noah Jacobson, Josh Jeffy, and Professor Hype, Sean Duffy, my name is Ed Dick. This has been the high school football preview show brought to you by Ray Felton State Farm Insurance. And we will see you on the other side.
Sports on Tap's high school football coverage is on every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Watch live on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Sports on Tap's high school football coverage is presented by Raymond Felton State Farm.
Have you compared insurance rates lately? Are you satisfied with your current insurance provider? If not, look no further than Ray Felton State Farm, a proud sponsor of Sports on Tap. For a free quote, call his office at 234-284-2996 or visit him online at rayfelton.com.
Whether you're hosting a corporate event, wedding, conference, concert, or any other special gathering, our comprehensive range of services will exceed your expectations and elevate your event to new heights. RRT Productions. We shoot, we edit, you win. Visit our website at www.rrt-productions.com.
Hand and built leather goods. Leather goods built for life. Made by hand in the USA, all goods are made with veg-tanned leather. Some of the best quality around and made by a U.S. veteran. Check out their website, www.handbuiltleather.com. We've got the experience, the passion, and the beach to make your event a smash hit. Whether it's a romantic wedding, a lively sports venue, or a rocking high school dance, Troutland Entertainment has you covered. Contact them at 330-414-4261 or email them at troutlandent@gmail.com. That's troutlandent@gmail.com.